This is not an African Kids Need Help ad campaign. This is a rural school in China. The truth is, China's poorest are still left to rot. These are scenes from a documentary in 2012 called Three Sisters, which documented the lives of some of the poorest areas in China. China calls itself the second largest economy and claims to have eradicated extreme poverty. While this documentary was filmed about 10, 12 years ago, the exact details are still very relevant today. Because the truth is, although the CCP by definition have eradicated poverty, the reality is that Chinese people are still living in poverty for most of them. Some people always claim that, look, David, China has improved their quality of life, quality of living. How can you still claim that China has poverty issues? Imagine yourself, if you're a communist dictator, what would you do? Option one is you claim that we'll let half of the country get rich first, and we're going to shift the definition. And because while the other half did get rich, we can almost forget about the half that remained poor. Because we elevated half of the country, we're a first world country now. Am I right, Deng Xiaoping? Or option two, you brainwash people so hard to think that peasantry and being poor is the mainstream style of life. Am I right, Mao Zedong? Or option three, you were given 2 decades of economic growth and you claim to have alleviated poverty from existence. Yet, after you issued a lockdown in 2020, all of these issues that seemingly have gone away came back. I wonder why. Am I right, Xi Jinping? What I'm trying to illustrate here is that through each iteration of leadership in China, they've never solved the problem. They've simply, using their own ways, tried to disguise the problem as something else. Look, this video is not trying to paint this China has poor people as, somehow they're second-class citizens. In fact, that's far from it. I'm trying to be realistic about this issue. So the hidden reality is this question, actually. Are Chinese people less than trees? Apparently, yes. On December 8th, in the province of Henan, they started to put sweaters on trees. And yet, this video started to circulate on Chinese social media. This man is too poor to afford winter clothes, so instead he has to use layers of plastic bag to try to survive the incoming winter in China. Internet users really put it the best. A man's life is not as good as trees in China. When trees get sweaters and people get ignored, that seems to be a very problematic society, doesn't it? What kind of a system lets that happen? What role does the government play when that happens? And that's not the only example. This photo recently, what Chinese internet users are calling the Pulitzer winning photo from China, is a cart from China Welfare Lottery, which by definition, their point of this lottery is that it's supposed to contribute back to helping the homeless, the less fortunate people in China. Yet, you see the employees in the cart on their phone, and this homeless person, this beggar in front of the cart lays right there. So there's some level of irony, right? The fact that they claim to have eradicated poverty, yet in this photo, it clearly shows the extreme wealth gap. Now, I understand wealth gap and poverty are two different things, and that's a whole other topic because there's also problems why the wealth gap widened. Because if the China Welfare Lottery claims to have a mission of helping the poor, where does this take us? Well, the simple answer is they're clearly not doing their job. If you can't even help the one in front of you, how are you expected to be trusted to help the others? And the interesting thing is we recently have a scholar that said 900 million people in China still live as low income. Okay, so this data is not new. Last year, exactly a year ago, another professor, so this is more than 2 people now actually, there's more people, but 2 professors have now talked about that 900 million people in China live in essentially low income level rather than being middle income. So that's about 65% if we consider 1.4 billion people, although China's real population after COVID deaths and birth rate decline is probably around like 1 billion people. So we're thinking 60 to 70% of that population, even higher, is not able to live in a middle income society. And remember, in 2020, former Premier Li Keqiang says that 600 million people still lived on less than 1,000 yuan a month, which is barely $150. So if you go scour the deep database of Douyin, and you will honestly, I've tried this all night, you won't find anything that will tell you how bad the poverty level is in China, because it comes from the government. They do not want people to think that China is still having this extreme level of poverty. It sounds quite unbelievable, even bizarre, that 900 million people in China, when the fact is you can go to large cities like Shanghai or Beijing and you can probably see, wow, these people are just like us. You know, they have apartments, they have cars, they live a pretty luxurious lifestyle. But the truth is, most of China is not like that. This video is a family doing dumpster diving. The father is collecting cardboard and bottles while the mom and the kids are watching closely. And this family looks quite young. This is not some 70, 80-year-olds. And these videos here, you see the parent has to carry the kid on their back while they do these dangerous production line work. Or at the construction site. And this old woman in this video here wanders between the food carts, asking them about their cheapest item. Eventually, she settled to buy a baked bread, and the person that filmed this eventually bought her breakfast. And this is a kid who was seen dumpster diving. Obviously, he was hungry, so the man who filmed got him some food and also a new pair of shoes. Later, he had to delete this video because he got pressure from the local mayor. Obviously, they didn't want to be embarrassed about the situation, so they forced him to delete the video. All he wanted to do was just help a kid out and spread awareness. And this video, which I did a short video on before,
现在有收入吗？
我的收入啊，都没得，我78了，
没有养老金吗？
没得没得，
那你平时花钱怎么办呢？
花钱，就是我家找的。
那这是去干嘛呢？
我去买点米呀，
像您那之前给别人干家务，
干家务那整才300块钱一月，就是买点米，我也没几个人。
咱们今天给婆婆买点米，也要买点肉。
And this another man here also, the person filming could not bear to go up to the man across the street directly, so instead he got somebody else to give him a bag of takeout food so that he can eat instead of the scrap melon peel that he was eating. So the idea of China eradicating poverty, at least the propaganda makes it sound like that there's no poverty in China anymore. They also claim that, you know, there's still poverty, but it's not what you think, right? People get food to eat, people are living pretty well, and eventually, you know, farmers have their own land. All of this is built on the idea that they stay exactly where they are. Because here is the caveat. I'll admit that the 900 million people, not everybody lives like the people in these videos. In fact, even the researchers themselves say that it's a huge range, right? Between people who are making money, who has jobs that almost are in that middle income category, but they still fall short, to those extreme poverty that we're seeing in some of the videos. While most of them are almost making it, they end up falling into what's called the middle income trap, which I'll talk in more details. But before that, here, show you this video. So this is a little collection of people who are doing challenges of, after they're laid off from work or they have no jobs, of spending the least amount of money to get by each day. So this person in one day spent about 10 yuan, which is about $1 or $1.38, $1.40 US dollars, that is. And so when people almost get into that middle income category, they fall into the middle income trap. Now, with the middle income trap, you're thinking of people who used up their entire life savings to buy a house, and when that crashed, they've been left with an unfinished home. They got nothing, no savings or anything like that. And then you also have people who can't really afford medical expenses because despite being a socialist economy, they don't have a universal health care system or universal health coverage. So people pay out of pocket way more than other countries. But the CCP doesn't care about any of that. All they care is this little wordplay called definitions defining poverty. And sure, 900 million people, not everybody is so poor to the point where they can't afford to eat. But think about what the CCP tried to achieve. All they're trying to say is that as long as we pretend these people aren't as in trouble as they are, then we should be fine to call ourselves successful in fighting poverty. So what should people do instead? Well, many videos that we can find online show that there's been more and more protests, especially because people aren't getting paid at their jobs for months on end. Some of them take up arms. Some of them do silent protest in front of the government building. No matter what, people at the bottom eventually will one day be fed up and rise up again. Now, eventually, let's not be too dreamlike in terms of what people can endure, because unfortunately a lot of them has been brainwashed or scared to rise up. But there will be a point in the future where people will break, and eventually when that comes, I think that's when all hell breaks loose, and that will be a whole other story to tell. So yeah, but that's it today for the episode on China's poverty issue and essentially what's not being told to the public. If you enjoy the content, leave a like, comment below your thoughts, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, bye bye.